Welcome back to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. It is great to have you with us again, and we have a good one. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University and co-author of the new book, The Real Case for Driverless Mobility, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred.
Good morning. And with us is the legendary Alex Roy, founder of Johnson & Roy Advisors, the Automakers podcast, The Drive, and the Human Driving Association. He's a former self-driving exec at Argo AI and the godfather of modern cannonballing. It says all that and more on LinkedIn. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Fred. Hey, Alan. How are you guys?
Terrific. Well, this week you had an opinion piece published in the San Francisco Standard with the headline, Waymo is the good actor in a sea of robotaxi competitors. Don't torch its vehicles. The subheadline is Unmasking Autonomous Vehicle Lies. Alex Roy makes a call for nuanced debate as Waymo paves a responsible route amid reckless operators. Alex, I think it would be great if maybe you read the rest of this column for the audience to kind of launch our discussion here.
I'm happy to do so. Like a director's cut. Can I read it and then can we deconstruct it? Because it got edited a little bit before publishing, and there's a little bit more nuance to my argument than even what got published.
Let's do it.
Well, why don't you just read what you want to read of it, and then we'll go into the nuances. This is a discussion, okay? We want this to be a discussion, and that's a good way to do discussion. Perfect, okay? All right.
Okay. All right. Here goes. All right. So I ride in Waymo Robotaxis almost every day in Phoenix, where I live. My 5-year-old daughter, Coco, loves them, and so do I. Waymos are immaculate. They're reliable. They're comfortable. They cost the same or less than ride hail, and they feel safer than the average cab. And so as a cyclist, I'd rather be surrounded by Waymos than human drivers. So you can totally imagine, my reaction to the San Francisco mob that torched the Waymo last month. Some people claimed that this vandalism was justified as part of a larger, anti-autonomous vehicle movement. And one tech critic, and I'm going to name him, it's Paris Marx, called it a beautiful scene. And we could do a whole episode about that. We won't, but we'll touch on that. So I waited for someone to come in and defend Waymo, because this is the only company that has successfully deployed driverless robotaxis anywhere. And that's even more stark a difference when you see what's happened to Cruise at the same time Waymo's been scaling up. But all I found in defense of Waymo were a bunch of VC guys complaining about Luddites and just ignoring what was happening with Cruise, just saying AVs are inevitable, and Mayor London Breed waving the whole incident away and claiming there was no message or intent attached whatsoever to the actual torching incident. So a couple of days later, there was this press release from a group called the Network for Safety in Our Streets and for Working People. They demanded that Governor Newsom basically ban Waymos from the streets and basically all AVs. So they went after trucking as well, but I didn't touch on trucking in my column. And a few days beyond that, the California CPUC, the Public Utilities Commission, suspended Waymo's request to expand service. They reversed that decision later, but initially they said no. So I'd like to say one side of the
yes,
debate.
But one thing that I'd like to for my own, okay. My reaction was I was shocked, and I was so depressed that such a thing could happen. And secondly, that group, I think maybe it was the San Francisco Chronicle or something that had the article on it, showed 5 people on the street with signs that had nothing to do with reality, claiming to not do this. And I said, what? I mean, I think, isn't that when we restarted our Come On Man section? We said, come on, man, is anybody awake out here? I mean, this is like ridiculous. San Francisco, you're blowing it. But go ahead.
Something, we'll pause going through my column right there, because we could go deeper into this. There's something very weird almost about the initial response to the torching, because before anyone else came in and CPC or anyone else said anything, you had people like Paris Marx saying, good, This is good. Like, we need to go after these things. And this is classic Luddism. Waymo doesn't have a trucking division. So the claims that they're not safe, we could address those, and that they take jobs is another thing. The claims that ride-hail drivers are already being impacted by AV is absurd. There are millions of ride-hail drivers, millions, and yet, despite those millions, you will find in many American cities surge pricing when you ask for a car at certain times of day. Why? Demand is higher because supply is constrained. So why wouldn't you want to have additional, reliable, immaculate, safe, and potentially cheaper options available on streets offered by another player like a Waymo? This wouldn't necessarily impact drivers as much as stabilize pricing. And so that's a good thing. And there are many places where ride-hail will never, ever be a solution to mobility problems, in which case you want another option added to the mix. So that's absurd. There is in almost every political debate, and it's not limited to transportation, invariably within hours, even minutes of an incident of any kind, like this Waymo torching, people on the street with signs throwing out like the full arsenal of arguments against something without any nuance, funded by someone else. I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but it does happen. In this particular case, I am not convinced that there is a mass movement anywhere, or even in San Francisco, against AV. I'm convinced that there's a loud fringe element that is against it, based on misunderstanding, if not exaggeration, that the media often fuels. I'll give you an example. There have been polls in recent years, and in recent weeks, they've really gotten loud. Polls about how the American public is afraid of AV, or doesn't believe in AV, or is suspicious of self-driving. Self-driving and AV as terms, as everyone knows, and your students learn from you, Alan, don't mean anything. The majority of stories with the words autonomous and self-driving in the media are about Tesla, which are not self-driving or autonomous. And so the average person on the street who thinks Tesla's ahead, the next day may think that it's all doomed because Tesla's not ahead. And Tesla, in fact, is having some media coverage about, say, the Angela Chow crash. Angela, the sister of Elaine Chow, the former head of the DOT. And so I'm convinced that Waymo is victim of 99% a victim of a mix of misunderstanding about what self-driving and AV means, political groups that just want to eliminate all nuance and oppose technology, and pure Luddism. And then the last 1% is AV's defenders are few, competent defenders are few and far between. And AV's opposition are many and generally incompetent. And this is why my article was published. So this is why I wrote it, to just carve away all that nonsense and get to like the gut of the debate worth having, which is, what is the optimal level of regulation that suits both sides of the debate, that allows this technology to flourish and benefit cities? And I don't hear that debate anywhere, except I'm going to give credit. The one city leader that I have felt has tried best in a good faith effort is actually Jeffrey Tumlin from San Francisco. He has attempted to be reasoned and accommodate the communities and companies, but not many others.
Well, Alex, on that end, I guess I have to jump in, because, in fact, that is the whole purpose of the book that Michael Senna and I wrote, and it really focuses on that. We sort of make the claim that this is somewhat self-inflicted. The reason why it's self-inflicted is because, and for good reason, the focus has been safety, and the focus being safety. And safety is absolutely, totally, unquestionably a necessary condition to this. If it's unsafe, it isn't going to happen. But that's not the reason for this. The reason for this is because it's unbelievably flexible in its response to demand, and it can be incredibly affordable. And therefore, the disruptive element of this mobility is if, and we'll put the if because in mathematics, it is a necessary condition. If it is safe, then you can take advantage of the flexibility, you can take advantage of the affordability, and you can be disruptive and provide mobility, not only to the rich, but also the poor. Oh my goodness. Now the rich already have plenty of mobility, doesn't do them a whole heck of a lot of greater good, but the amount of value societally to the poor who don't have all the opportunities, and all of a sudden this explodes their opportunity set and improves their lives, the value to society. And that's what they missed in San Francisco. They didn't go after, not everybody's rich in San Francisco. Not everybody wants another luxury ride, but that luxury ride could be offered to those who can't afford the existing luxury ride. Uber and Lyft are expensive without price surging. Minneapolis is going to put on there a requirement that those drivers earn a living. As soon as the drivers are forced to earn a living, guess what happens? It can't be affordable unless we go through public subsidy and all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
But this stuff can be affordable. Oh my goodness. Why is that appreciated?
Okay. I agree with you, but I'll say something. I'm going to say something I couldn't say when I worked at Argo AI for 4 years, and I couldn't say this publicly when I was there, and I've never worked for Waymo or Cruise or anyone else. But I'll say something that all these companies want to say, but they can't because tonally it just comes off wrong. In order to raise, none of these companies are profitable if they generate any meaningful revenues at all.
It's not even close.
Okay, not even close. But for them to get to revenue generation and eventually, profitability, they've got to show charts to investors that go up and to the right. Let's go up and to the right, not just technologically, which is all the media wants to talk about, but revenue and profits. And to do that, you've got to start where you can generate revenue and profits. And that is not that's going to be downtown to airport or downtown. And so people of means are the first people you're going to see take these things, but they have to be the first ones in order to get to everyone else. And it's a lot of the opposition, or at least many of the critics. I don't consider you a critic. I consider you an advocate of responsible, good faith.
I want to be a critic.
No, well, any meaningful advocacy for anything must include acknowledgement, understanding, and addressing of criticism, because it has to. That's what advocacy is. Otherwise, it's shilling, and that's why I consider you an advocate. Now, a lot of the people who want to see state for development and or development that's equitable, deployment that's equitable, want to skip the middle part of business reality, which is the math, because they usually come from the government side and don't want to believe, or they want to believe there's an unlimited pool of money that can finance anything from private sector, that can just make stuff happen magically. And in a way, the AV industry is a victim of its own hype in a different way, because all the promises about being safe and equitable never say it's going to take a long time. And so a long time could be 3, 5, 10 years. Instead, because of so many promises of imminent deployment, the cities and critics are like, well, if it's imminent, how come the equity part's not imminent too? How come the safety part's not already proven? And so these are not realistic expectations of a technology that requires long, slow, patient timelines. And this is, again, why I give Waymo credit, because they have been quietly plugging away for more than 10 years. And so companies that have a much shorter timeline have absolutely no chance of addressing any of the expectations that the critics are bringing to the table.
Well, Alex, I absolutely agree with you with respect to that, and I've been a big critic of Waymo, but Waymo, in terms of their dedication to this thing since at least 2009, and with absolutely laser focus on becoming safe and recognizing that that is a necessary condition, I can't imagine anybody doing that better than they've done it. Okay. Because they absolutely laser focused on that. My point is that I think they've achieved that. And they are safe. As you point out in your article, you pointed out very clearly, they are safe.
Well, actually, let me unpack.
Within an
that.
operational design domain, they're not safe everywhere. They may not be safe going to the airport, because going to the airport, taking me to the airport, I just took Lyft to the airport and to the airport and back and so on. You know, for them to be as good as that. Oh, Professor Kornhauser, may I carry your bag? Oh, my goodness. Oh, Elizabeth, let me hold your hand and all this stuff. You know, they still have a challenge. Okay. But when I do the math, and I think that I know how to do math, if there's anything I know how to do, there isn't enough market, even if you took every Uber ride, every Lyft ride, to make Waymo profitable. Uber rides are basically less than $1 million a day. Okay. You take that and you keep all the money of an Uber ride and you add that up. Boy, the return on investment, I don't think it may make it. It may make it. So even if you do that, I don't think you get there. However, the opportunity to basically drop the cost without surge pricing of what it costs you to operate these things by 80% allows you to charge another, 5% on top and make money. And what I think you then have the opportunity to do is, instead of having an opportunity for 1x of trips, 100x of trips. And the 100x of trips of people who really would value you, use you every day as you use them every day, because their alternatives are, I don't get to work. I don't get to go to the doctor. I don't get to go to school. I don't get to go across town to shoot hoops. Okay, not to go to the airport. We have good ways to go to the airport. We already do that well for those that go to the airport. But for people who, in fact, could really improve their lives, which they have not taken a look at. So when I run the numbers on these things, even north of Buffalo, that includes an Indian reservation, okay, rural. Oh my goodness, you get productivities of 45-person trips a day with these vehicles. You put 45-person trips a day times 300 days a year times whatever. Geez, a couple bucks pays for the vehicle. What the hell is the energy cost? What's the management cost? Once you set up the operation system, the operation that you can then put here, that Waymo's talked about putting all around the country. Boom, you have the opportunity to deliver the societal value and make money with volumes that, if you take that 5% times 100x, as opposed to 80% times 1x, your board says, yeah, you do your fiduciary responsibility. That line goes up like this. Now, is that going to take a little bit more time? Holy hell, look at how much time we've been at it so far. That's
now, Alex,
let
me ask Alex this.
Yeah,
listening to what Alan just said, Alex, what do you see as the roadblock? I mean, the people in these companies certainly can do math too. Why hasn't this happened?
All right. Well, there's two things which are, I would call it a roadblock. The nature of propagation of AV fleets at scale. It's like, if you took I'm trying to think, a really big plate and you took some dry French bread and sprinkle it across the plate, and then you pour olive oil on one end of the plate, it's going to flow. The smaller pieces, it's just going to flow right through. But the big pieces, it's going to flow around. And that's kind of the roadblock here. Or let me just say, not the roadblock, the channeling of AV fleet propagation looks like that. Two reasons. First, the financing required to build AVs at scale, the actual vehicles with the compute and everything else, it's not like a regular car. It costs more per vehicle for now. Second, even if you have the fleet, if you want to deploy a fleet in such a way that it can substitute for transit or some other mode, which is reliable 365 days a year for people to go to school or work, which is really what is necessary for AV to become a meaningful daily leg of the mobility life for someone. They have to work 4 seasons reliably, in all 4 seasons. And the state of the art is not there yet, technically not there yet, even if the financing was there to build 1 million AVs. So that takes a little bit of work. And that's not so hard to understand if you look at, say, European culture. There are people in the Nordic countries who ride bikes every day, even through deep blizzards. But there are people in America who won't drive their own cars in the deep blizzard. Things shut down because of lack of driver training. AVs have to navigate the expectation that they can substitute for another leg of transit or a mobility mode. And just technologically, they have more work to do. And so that's why you see them deployed first in the United States, in a southern archipelago of states, which have 0 to low regulatory barriers and are, from a seasonal standpoint, just really easy to go to. But yes, Alex, I agree with you,
Alex.
They're going to get there.
We close schools when it snows here in New Jersey. Okay,
so
there's an inch of snow here in Jersey. We close the school. The governor comes on and says, "Ooh, no trucking through here." So I mean, the industry's been using this excuse, and it's not.
It's not an excuse.
Buffalo only has 28 days a year in which it has more than 1 inch of snow.
Let me.
We shovel the streets. Okay.
But we both know that if an AV fleet was, theoretical, if an AV provider came in and said to a city, we would like to have a public-private partnership, and we could do X, Y, and Z to substitute for, bus routes or supplement bus routes. A year later, somebody in the bus route side would be like, well, we don't need to run any bus routes because the AV guy is just going to take it anyway. Sounds good. They cut the bus routes. The first time AV fleets don't go out because of weather, the critics are going to be out in full force, be like, these folks can't be trusted or relied upon to help the working man because technology sucks. They take jobs and they don't deliver the passengers to their jobs. And so that is going to be a slow roll.
But Alex, that's the wrong argument. You don't.
I'm not saying it's a good argument.
No, but but that's a wrong approach. You don't go to the poobahs at the top because, of course, there's no bus service that's there that's good anyway. The people, you go to the community that act and you ask them what mobility needs are not fulfilled by you today.
So let me stop you right there, because
you take that and then you serve that. You work you go knock on doors. This is like running for office. You've got to go knock on doors. You don't ask for approval from some smoke-filled back room of who knows whom's. You go to the people that you deliver the value to.
So Alex, first of all, when I was at Argo, I was supporting and working on the community engagement stuff. We were doing exactly that. Now, I don't know how Waymo does it, but let me state something I didn't state in my column, which is this. There are effectively 2 approaches to autonomous vehicle deployment, and that no one talks about. Okay, there's the full stack developer, like a Waymo, Cruise, Motional, Zoox, Argo, formerly. So in other words, the companies that are developing hardware and software. And if they're not doing their own vehicles, they're deeply integrated in someone else's vehicles. The full kitty approach on one end of the spectrum. And they're also doing their own community engagement and fleet financing and deployment, everything. And on the other end are the kind of granular approaches. So you've got Mobileye, who don't build vehicles, and they're not trying to go to market themselves. They develop and sell the hardware and software to car companies, basically. And so in between, you've got kind of like the fuzzy one, like Tesla, which have cars and their own approach. But really, there's two. Put them in two camps. And if as long as Waymo exists, and anyone like them exists, then communities, states, cities, countries have on one hand, count them, a number of actors they can just negotiate with, discuss, and learn and about how this is going to unroll, which is good because the fewer players on both sides of the table, the better, for simplicity's sake and elimination of friction in regulation discussions, for example. If Waymo didn't exist, if all the full stack guys go away, and one by one they are going away, Cruise, I think it's quite possible, likely maybe that they will go away. If the full stack guys go away, then robotaxi and and personally autonomous vehicles, all that stuff, will be delayed by many years. And who will then eventually deploy it are going to be third and fourth parties, OEMs, or companies that just buy OEM vehicles stuffed with Mobileye or maybe someone else's tech, and Tesla. And what's going to happen is you'll have a Cambrian explosion that maybe people don't like, which is dozens, hundreds, or thousands of small fleets deploying all over. Too many for regulators to talk to, negotiate with, or learn from, doing it from the ground up. Now, they may be more likely faster to find product market fit on a local level, but it will become probably impossible to regulate them, or even if there were regulations, to get them all to comply with regulations. And so our country, or at least probably the world, is, I believe, going to see AV deployment that's safer and more reliable and compliant with good faith discussions and compliant with any regulations come out of those discussions if full stack developers get to market first. So,
okay,
that's my general thesis, and it's purely speculative, but based on the behavior of let's throw out a concrete example. Look at what happened with Turo. All right. So Turo is the peer-to-peer car sharing platform. Are you familiar with it, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay. Fred, familiar with it?
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So Turo, you've got people throw their cars the Turo platform. They're just regular cars, personally owned cars. And each person sets like some basic rules around their car, how it should be treated. And then Turo manages the insurance and the rest. And that's generally good for people. However, you have also, I don't want to call them parasitic, but you have fleets. You have private operators who, people, individuals, but really form businesses and then buy 5, 10, 20 cars. And if you go to LAX, you'll find at the parking lot by, I think it's the Target or the Walmart, not far from the airport, a parking lot that's meant for normal people to park and go shopping. The parking lot's been taken over by these fleets, these privately owned fleets whose companies exist and survive only because they're on the Turo network. Basic car rental companies run by people who just have a few dozen cars. And imagine if all those cars were Fords running Mobileye and or Teslas. Who is the city of LA or the state of California going to negotiate with about where the fleets park, how they behave, what they do, how often they're cleaned, how safe they are? Because all the Fords and the Teslas and let's say the Kias, all these different privately owned autonomous vehicles that are now run by someone like a private person living on these platforms, like who are the states or anyone regulators going to talk to about all the aspects of how those fleets are deployed and where they go. Like, you're going to force somebody who has 10 cars that they finance to deploy in this market versus that market? You can't. You literally can't. So in every way I can think of, society is better off if multiple full stack companies thrive, because they are going to be the bigger they are, the more interested they are going to be in being good actors on a societal level than my neighbor who can afford to finance 3 cars and put them on 3 AVs and put them on a Turo network. And so we want to be having the debate between cities and regulators and a full stack company, and not with millions of individuals.
Well, maybe.
By the way, they're going to, I would say this, that the privately owned Cambrian explosion of privately owned fleets is going to happen anyway. But we don't want that to be the only example we have. We want that to be happening in parallel or following the full stack fleets, who are going to perform probably a different function. The function you seek will be much more likely to be solved by a full stack developer with hundreds of thousands of cars than a guy with 5 cars living in Trenton. Because the guy with 5 cars living in Trenton, if his vehicles are slot in to do what you would like to see them do, which is a worthy goal, and that guy wakes up and one of his cars doesn't work, or 3 of his 5 are just broken that day, and because he personally, the way he runs his business, he couldn't afford to keep them running, he's not going to be able to provide vehicles that substitute for transit or supplement transit. The level of uptime required to provide a societal function on a community level that you are looking for can only be done by a larger player who, with redundancy in the fleet and the ability to maintain and support vehicles at scale reliably.
Alex, I'd hate to respectfully disagree with you.
Bring it on.
We're friends. I respectfully disagree with you. First of all, I'm not trying to replicate transit. I don't want to replicate transit. Why? Transit has 3% of the market share nationwide, half of which is in the New York metropolitan area. That's not big enough for me. Okay. What I'm looking for is something that not only, and as I see the rides market, which is the market that I'm trying to serve, just like Starbucks wants to serve the coffee lover market, I want to serve the rides market. And the rides market is separated into 2 pieces. Those that I call Home Depot types that do it themselves, have their own car, can drive themselves, and those that need a ride. And of those, of the 1.1 billion, as I like to say, trips that will occur today, each day in the US of A, half of which are drive yourself, Home Depot style, and half of which are get a ride. Plus, there's a whole bunch of latent demand that we don't even know about, of the folks who don't get to go to where they want to go because they don't have the means of getting a ride. Either for whatever reasons, usually it's affordability, okay? So there's even this third latent market out there that's on top of the 1.1 billion. And so if you look at the 50% that get a ride, like you picking up your daughter at school, she needed a ride, okay? Or others who ended up not going to school because they didn't have a ride or whatever. Those are the folks that one's looking at. If one is looking at creating a operator that would serve that coffee market, that coffee lover market, it's a rides market, not coffee lover market, then I'm not sure if the big operator like Waymo were focused on that market. I'd applaud them, go for it. You can probably clean it up right here, right now, beginning now. You can start small, you can expand it, you can go have nothing but Starbucks, Waymo lovers there who will then, as you, use you every day. Not once and who knows when going to the airport, oh my goodness, and whatever, and then complaining every whatever because whatever it didn't quite do exactly what who. That's the luxury market that they're after. They're not after.
I agree with you.
You know, they should be after this other market, which is huge and it's unserved and it's not transit doesn't go away, because what they do, nobody's going to replicate the New York City subway system. Okay,
although
that's a
they
good
should.
no,
They
no,
should.
no, it's a great system. It is a great, and so is New Jersey Transit Rail. Okay, and maybe New Jersey Transit Bus in Newark. New Jersey Transit Bus everywhere else in Jersey. I mean, come on. Come on,
Alan. Look, so I actually agree.
Okay?
I agree with you. I agree with you. There is space.
So
in the market.
go after that market, and if you go after that market, you become rich. You become rich.
I agree with you, and something in that, based on what you described, yes, a Cambrian explosion of small privately owned fleets on a neighborhood level probably could help and solve that, and I hope we get there. But again, I'm not sure. And that, I think that might be more likely to come from the second class of companies, which is small fleets, privately owned. Yeah, I can see that happening.
Why not the Waymos? Why not the preeminent fleets? What, they must be luxury. They must be Ferrari. They must be
are
Gucci.
they luxury?
They must.
Well, hold
of
on
course
a minute.
they're not.
Hold on a minute.
They're going to get their butts kicked.
Uber, when Uber launched, they were basically replacing black cars. They were black cars. Yeah. When Lyft launched, they were inexpensive cars. They were not in the same class. Like the form factor of the pricing was also different. Today, Uber and Lyft span every price category and vehicle form factor. And it's easy for them to do so because the vehicles they don't own them. Anyone can put their car in and they just slot in to wherever their car fits in the product
They're
hierarchy.
Abusing the worker. Okay. They're getting people to work for nothing. That is a limited supply.
I am not endorsing that approach. I'm just stating it as how they initially emerged and what they evolved to. Eventually, as the cost of the hardware, sensors, and compute for AV comes down, then you will see more form factors and different pricing levels and accessibility. But these companies, the
price of that goes to zero.
Well,
if we had
I don't know if the price goes to zero.
If we had a company, call it Westla, okay, that had a partial self-driving that actually worked.
Yes.
That for a vehicle, and at some point we all know it's going to work. They're going to get it. We all know. Exactly. That vehicle is going to become available. And in fact, guess what happens then? Then it's a Starbucks, not a little operator, that starts that and really builds a massive company out there. Why? Because there's a market of at least 500 million trips per day available out there, for which
Listen, Alan,
just make a couple bucks off of that. Okay,
and
that's not the onesie twosies.
But remember, Alan, that Tesla does not intend to provide those vehicles to a fleet that they run. They do intend. Their stated intent is to run on the Tesla network, which means it'll be just like Turo, which is the pricing is set by whoever owns the vehicle. And
but we know that's just stupid. That Airbnb Teslas is just, that's a non-starter. Why?
But that's exactly what's going to happen.
No, it's not, because the car is, when I need it, is when the entity needs it. And when I don't need it, it's when the entity doesn't need it. And if you have an asset that has zero demand, guess what its value is? Zero.
Well, remember,
it's zero. No, remember what?
Look, I would suggest that you should ask Elon Musk to come on the show, because I don't disagree with you.
I would love to, but Elon. Elon promoted that, not to say what Elon does. Elon promoted that as an incentive to put in somebody's mind, my goodness, I'm going to, the perceived cost of this thing goes not only negative, but I'm going to get a revenue. There's no substance in that.
But Alan,
there's no substance in that argument.
Let's back out of this conversational direction for a moment, because my column was not meant to debate the value of different approaches, although
I know
I'd like to see this happen. My point was that there are AV companies who have been suboptimal actors, and that any chance for any of this to deploy may be delayed years or decades if we paint them all with the same brush. And as this conversation proves, they are not all the same. Technology aside, the business model approaches and the domain selected, the markets, the go-to-market strategy, they all differ. And your point is, in fact, most of your work in recent years is exactly that. We need someone to be, we can't be debating the technology, because I think it's inevitable. We need to be debating what are the realistic and best deployment timelines and places, and what is the product. And that's a debate that no one really wants to have, and you love having it. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you, and I also want to back up. I absolutely agree with you that these folks have different levels of whatever, of capabilities. Fred, I've been trying to, the smoke and mirrors that people have used to paint themselves as being able to do this is so outlandish that my goodness, it is a disservice to Waymo. And in fact, Waymo may in fact be the only company that can do it. Okay, maybe Cruise was close, maybe not. My thing was that they were a little closer, but you have better information than I have. Okay.
Well, I remember I came to your class how many months ago?
Yeah,
it was like a week before Cruise had the first big incident, and I remember sitting in your class, and you had said to me that Kyle Vogt had addressed your class recently, and then I came in and tore up almost everything he said. I did not know how right I was going to turn out to be, but let me say this as an optimist.
Wait, let me just intervene. I don't know. He came to my class on the day that his life changed.
No, really?
So he was no. I mean, we talked about this, and it's just people shouldn't talk to me because I think I mean, it's just look. This is tough. The safety thing is tough. And again, I want to say I so appreciate Waymo, in fact, for staying the course. And they may be the only one. Look at all the Chinese stuff that's out there. I mean, you can't even think about what the hell. What's that?
I have seen. Well, let me say this. I think there are other good actors. I think Motional is a good actor. And Carl Yanyema, the CEO of Motional, you should invite him on your show. Have you had him?
I have not.
Carl Yanyema is an
exceptional.
He's an exceptional intellect and a genuinely good guy. And it's almost impossible to find a quote of his that was stupid, and you can't say that of a lot of these leaders. He's great. He's also a science fiction and poetry author. You should maybe I'll ping him and see if he'll come on your show. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic for Motional because they've got a leader who has avoided the mistakes that others have made. You got good people over there. I know a lot of those folks. And then you've got Hyundai as one of their backers, and they're, I think, about to decide whether to keep funding Motional. Who have very good vehicles, really great vehicles, electric and internal combustion, and many of them are very beautiful. And so, I would love to see Motional thrive over many years. And then the dark horse or the wild card here is Zoox, Amazon's division.
Yeah,
they have been strange because they keep saying it's robotaxi and nothing else, no delivery, nothing else, robotaxi, and they've been very quiet for very long, maybe too long. I'd like to see. I hope that they get to market with something, because we need competition, not just across the continuum of AV companies, but within models. So the full stack companies, there's so few of them, we need more than one. And I hope that we see Motional and Zoox, get to market with something. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this notion that my column was deterministic. There hasn't been a lot of pushback, but what pushback there was that I was trying to suppress debate because my argument is deterministic. I stayed up front and at the bottom. AVs are inevitable, and I started out in this industry as a critic, a skeptic, but I always assumed, and I feel stronger about it today, that this is inevitable. And I'm amazed that anyone would come to the market and say AVs are not, because it's quite clear that there's a trajectory technologically that's upward and to the right, not as fast as the shills, charlatans, and idiots have claimed, but it is up and to the right, and they exist where I live in Phoenix, and they exist in other places to a lesser degree. And there was a very Silicon Valley bro argument years ago, which I thought was, I want to say stupid, but I'm gonna use a word I haven't used since high school, puerile. Okay, genuinely puerile, which was that if aviation had gotten the scrutiny 100 years ago that AV is getting now, we wouldn't have commercial aviation. But actually, that argument is absolutely true. It's absolutely true. There was basically no regulation of aviation 100 years ago, and there are only a couple of major milestones in regulation. But and aviation was kind of unsafe for many decades until you get into the 70s, where there was the hockey stick of safety in aviation, which came after a couple of really big and serious crashes that killed hundreds at a time. And now aviation, and this is true even of Boeing right now, people are going after Boeing big time. It seems that what's happened isn't that they are suddenly much less safe. It seems as if the scrutiny and media coverage of a chronic level of problems has just increased. But despite that chronic level of issues, aviation is safer than every other mode of travel, far safer than driving yourself. And so there is a profound lack of education about like statistical risk across domains and verticals for the average American. Maybe it's everybody. And now that's being applied to AV in an exponentially more challenging way than aviation ever received in its dawn. And so we cannot let the autonomous baby get thrown out with the misperceived risk bathwater.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you, of course, with aviation. I mean, look, it's 0 deaths in the U.S. in how many years? What, 15 now or something like that? It's like there hasn't been whatever. And even when a door blows out, nobody gets hurt. I mean, are you kidding me? It's like cut it out. I mean,
the real crime. Yeah, the real crime, Alan. I'm going to get a lot of heat for this because I consider myself always a centrist, if not like a left of center individual my whole life. The real crime here is the people on the street who have been protesting AV, but especially protesting against Waymo after Cruise was taken off the streets. Okay. How many of those people march down to the California DOT or DMV and protest giving licenses to people with virtually no testing or poor testing, and then killing 100 people a day? Where are the marches? Where are the marches against that? 40,000 people a year killed on American roads. Nobody protesting our licensing standards.
Or demanding at NHTSA, you must put in automated emergency braking systems that work irrespective of what the person wants to do, or put in a breathalyzer, not letting you turn it on. Or if you happen to turn on your phone, you can't just hit, I'm not driving, and all of a sudden everything's okay. I mean, come on, come on. I mean, those are truly come on mans. I agree with you. I mean, the deaths, as we've been saying here on this thing, the 90% of crashes are caused by human misbehavior. And people knowing they're misbehaving, they know it. They know they drank too much. They know they're falling asleep. They know they're texting. They know they're speeding. Whatever. This
is kind of a perfect.
They deserve it. Unfortunately, they deserve it. Okay, they deserve it. But NHTSA could easily say, "Hey, you got to have this. You got." Why isn't there as I'd like to say, my speedometer in my car, I know your car says 220 miles an hour. Okay. No, I mean, your Bentley says, no, never mind. I won't look at it.
I drive a Tesla. I drive a Tesla, Alan. It's a wonderful commuter car.
And what's the acceleration? 0 to 60 in less than 1 second. What is this crap?
I have it on chill mode. Because I have a baby seat in the back.
Oh, good. Well, chill mode, I mean, I guess Tesla wants to sell. This is another thing. I guess it has Tesla sell more cars because it pumps up this speed and this acceleration. But it's really, my goodness, get some social responsibility, Tesla. Really, do you need that to sell your cars? You're supposed to be saving the world with this thing. Huh? Back off this crap. The jerks that really want, well, wait, let's see. I'm not sure if I'm talking. You used to like to accelerate fast too and do that. No, whatever. But you were responsible. What can I say?
But listen, I know we're about to run out of time. I'd like to make one more brief statement, and then you're in charge. People have said to me that they think I'm anti-Cruise. I have some personal beef with Cruise. Let me be clear. I have friends at Cruise, and we need competition. Most importantly, it would be great if we had a full stack AV company that was owned by an OEM, a vehicle manufacturer, because we need to see variation in the business models. And I think Cruise leadership suffered from a failure of imagination. And sometimes a failure of imagination can defeat imagination. It took some imagination to launch an AV company, but the failure to grasp how to run it and how to deploy it, that was really bad. And so I hope Cruise survives because there are some good folks there and there is some technology there. They need better leadership. I hope they find it.
Well, let me jump in also on that one. I at one point in my life competed with Kyle. I have the most respect for Kyle. I like Kyle. I think he tried whatever, but and so on. One of the things that I would like to see, and I agree with you that we need competition, is I'd like to see a redesign of the origin vehicle and hide the lidars. Don't be out there selling that what you're doing is look at my lidars. Why don't you sell the mobility that you're really trying to serve and sell that? And sell the affordability and sell the life improving advantages of being able to get somebody to someplace that otherwise they wouldn't be able to get to, and do that as opposed to here, look at my lidar. I mean, I just think if I was Waymo, I'd hide all those things. I wouldn't put driverless out there. That's not the real value you do. The real value is you allow people to get a ride who can't, for whatever reason, can't do it themselves. Focus on that. Okay.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. It's so simple, but not to try to sell my book or whatever. It's so fundamental. What is your business? If you're building a lemonade stand company to put next to the road and you're 12 years old, what do? You want to sell good lemonade. Why can't you go back to your being 12 years old and sell a good ride, okay, that has flexibility, that has a 24/7, that has it most days? You don't have to do everything for me. That maybe just takes me, maximum 5 miles, as opposed to grandma's house that I go to. Never want to go there anyway. What?
Forgive me, guys, but I've got a hard cutoff because I got a 5-year-old who wants to get a ride in a Waymo and go to Cars and Coffee. So,
well, Alex, we thank you so much.
Hey, we thank you, Alex.
Where's the best place for people to go for more info, Alex?
My website, LinkedIn, Alex Roy, Twitter, Alex Roy 144, and my firm. If anyone out there would like to have some advice as to how to avoid these mistakes and save billions, Johnson-Roy.com.
Terrific, Johnson-Roy.com. Thank you so much, Alex.
It's always a lot of fun, and thank you.
Well, Alan, we've got to turn to a couple of the headlines anyway from the Smart Driving Cars newsletter. One, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety is introducing a new ratings program to encourage automakers to incorporate more robust safeguards into their partial driving automation systems. It says out of the first 14 systems tested, 1 earned an acceptable rating. That's the Teammate system available on the Lexus LS. And you have a link to the report in the newsletter.
Yeah, and I think this is really important. I mean, they've been testing these things for some years now, and of course, you know, David Zuby and others from IIHS have come to past summits and basically pointed out, oh my goodness, I mean, 12 miles an hour with an obstacle stationary in front, the cars just ran through them and showed the displays. The automakers, have been promising to us that they would have automated emergency braking systems that worked, and by 2021 or so, are we beyond 2021? I think, but we had COVID. Okay. And it is really good that IIHS is now calling to the industry. You can do this. You can put these systems in there. They didn't say it, but I guess, I speculate the reason why they haven't is because, they want to respect their users and their buyers and so on, and they don't want to, override what the driver wants to do. But my goodness, this all has to do with safety and comfort and convenience. And if the driver is misbehaving, I think it is the job of the OEM to say, look, you're misbehaving. Don't misbehave with our stuff. We're turning it off, or we're pulling it over. You can't use our product if you're going to not use it properly. And to have the IIHS come in there and basically plead to the industry to, look, make this stuff work and make people stop misbehaving. And it's okay to cross a double line, as long as there's nobody coming the other way. Okay, but if there's somebody coming the other way, don't cross a double line. Now it's up to the OEM to get their stuff to work well enough so that it knows the difference between those two things. And that's why, just simplistic approaches to this stuff haven't worked up to this point. But come on, you're good enough. You can make this work. You know what's coming. You can see it. You've put the cameras on there. You put the cameras inside the vehicle. You can see if the driver, put something over the camera and can't see. If the driver chooses to turn the system off, then you should pull over and say, okay, we're back to a 55 Chevy here. You do it all. I'm not helping you. And if you want help from me, get a note from your mother.
Meanwhile, Alan, from the New York Times, this headline: automakers are sharing consumers' driving behavior with insurance companies. And this is focused on LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And the story was followed a few days later by this headline: Florida man sues GM and LexisNexis over sale of his Cadillac data.
I mean, GM, please use the data that you're gathering on a consumer's behavior to help the consumer to do what the IIHS is asking you to do, rather than selling it to somebody who's not going to take advantage of that person. I mean, really, GM, you really did this? Whew.
NVIDIA's GTC is about to get underway, Alan. You're going to be getting on a plane again. The founder and CEO is delivering a keynote on Monday, Jensen Huang. What a ride NVIDIA is on. I'm sure this is going to be a great conference.
Yeah, look, I can't wait to go out there and see what's going on. I expect to learn a lot.
Just terrific. And Alan, SpaceX had another Starship launch this week. It nearly completed the test flight before disintegrating on the return to Earth. Pretty big success in the eyes of most.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to the launch. I just didn't give them enough credit when I did my expectations of whether or not it would be scrubbed. I put a probability of it scrubbing at 0.8. That's how bad I am at estimating future probabilities. That's why I guess, in investing, I buy high, sell low. What can I tell
the
you?
weather forecasting is involved too, and that's kind of a little unpredictable.
Man, I put it in all the models and all that stuff and did all this. I claimed to Alex that I knew how to do arithmetic, but I guess I don't because I didn't do a very good job on that one. I mean, you just have to take your hat off to them. That is just such a substantial accomplishment to do it on the date and to go through the countdown. Boom. At least when they started it, they knew to start the fuel loading and all that stuff, after I guess they had their estimates that the winds were going to be okay and so on and so forth. And from, fuel loading an hour, 53 minutes to launch, boom. No hold at 40 seconds, no hold at 10 seconds, boom, choo, boom, choo, and they at least live.
I was floored by the pictures, the live video feeds that they were showing, thanks to this I guess the Tesla's or the SpaceX satellite system. It was just amazing.
It was amazing. I thought it should perform also better because they had some places in which they had gaps in the video, but it looked like the telemetry was actually coming in terms of speed, altitude, and all that sort of stuff.
We were seeing things we never saw before.
We saw things we never saw before. I tried to watch it pass overhead. I was in Cancun and I couldn't see it. I mean, it's sort of, I didn't see it, because it was during the day, I guess, or maybe it passed there after it completed its burn, although not exactly sure exactly where it completed its burn. But anyway, I didn't. But I'm going to go the fourth one.
Terrific. Well, here it is mid-March, and the 6th Smart Driving Cars Summit in Princeton is getting pretty close, scheduled for the end of May. Alan, you have more on what's shaping up to be a dynamic agenda.
Yeah, I think a dynamic agenda, and I think if you appreciated the discussion that Alex and I had, hopefully that's the kind of discussion we're going to have at the summit. If you didn't like what Alex and I were discussing, then please don't come, because hopefully that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to deal with a proof of concept, really, which is safety of everything from advanced driver assistance through driverless for people, driverless for goods, driverless on private property, on public property. Same thing for goods. And then also deal with proof of market, and the third element is proof of politics. Alex hit on the regulatory framework that one is probably going to need in this. Maybe not. We have a regulatory framework that exists with respect to how we drive. And I guess we're going to need a similar one with respect to how we get a ride. But the opportunity to have an entity out there giving rides to not only us, but to the goods that need a ride, to get from where they're produced to the warehouses, to our homes, to our businesses. We're going to try to cover it all.
May 29th through the 31st. And if you're interested at all, you should be there. We want to thank Alex Roy once again for really a terrific discussion today. We hope all of you have enjoyed it. We want to remind you again, too, that the Real Case for Driverless Mobility is out now. Go buy it. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever you turn to for podcasts. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please continue to stay safe.
And thank you for being interested in this topic. It is going to happen.